Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving deep into something you might not think about every day, but it's in practically everything around you. Minerals. We're going through a U.S. Geological Survey report called World Minerals Outlook. Think of it as a crystal ball gazing into the production capacity of 8 key minerals all the way to 2029.
To 2029.
It gets pretty wild.
Yeah.
From the tech we're all using to global power plays. It even touches on the future of gas guzzlers versus electric vehicles.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This report is a treasure trove of insights.
Oh, yeah?
And we're about to unpack it all. We're talking about cobalt, gallium, helium, lithium, magnesium, palladium, platinum, and titanium.
Wow.
Get ready for some surprises.
Okay, so before we get lost in the world of minerals, let's make sure we're all on the same page. This report talks about production capacity. What exactly does that mean? Is it how much of these minerals we're actually digging up?
Not quite. Think of it as the maximum possible output. It's based on existing and planned mining and processing facilities, kind of like looking at the potential output of a factory.
Okay.
Actual production can fluctuate depending on things like demand, economic conditions, even things like natural disasters or political instability.
So it's more like a what-if scenario. Like
Yeah.
if everything went perfectly, this is how much we could produce.
Exactly. It gives us a sense of the potential supply out there, not a guaranteed number of tons of minerals hitting the market.
Got it. That makes sense. So let's jump into some of the specifics. This report highlights lithium and cobalt, which are pretty hot commodities these days, thanks to the whole electric vehicle and battery boom, right?
Absolutely. Lithium-ion batteries are in everything, from electric cars and smartphones to power tools. The report projects a massive jump in production capacity for both lithium and cobalt in the coming years, largely driven by the ever-growing demand for these batteries.
I mean, that makes sense. You can't turn on the news without hearing about electric vehicles and the need for more batteries. But I'm curious, are there any potential roadblocks to all of this lithium and cobalt production? Like, where does it all come from in the first place?
That's where things get really interesting. China currently dominates the processing of many minerals. And while they're not necessarily the top producers of lithium and cobalt, they're major players in the market. This raises some concerns about vulnerability for other countries.
Vulnerability? What do you mean? Like, are we too dependent on China for these minerals? Is that what you're getting at?
Precisely. China has a history of leveraging its production power in strategic ways. Think back to when they imposed export controls on gallium, a key component in semiconductors. Imagine if they decided to limit exports of lithium or cobalt that could send shockwaves through global tech supply chains.
Wow, I hadn't even considered that. So basically, our tech future could be at the mercy of China's decisions. That's a bit unsettling.
It highlights the interconnectedness of mineral resources and geopolitics. And there's another layer to this, China's overcapacity. They are producing way more of certain minerals than the world currently needs.
Overcapacity. So they're basically stockpiling these minerals. Why would they do that?
It can be a way to stifle competition. China can flood the market with cheaper products, making it difficult for other producers to gain a foothold. Imagine trying to sell lemonade when your neighbor is giving it away for free. It's tough to compete.
Okay, that makes sense. So they're using their production power to potentially control the market. It's like a game of chess on a global scale.
Yeah.
Can we shift gears for a moment? What about helium? The report mentions that as well, right?
Yes. And it's not just for party balloons, though I do enjoy a good floating celebration. Helium is essential for all sorts of high-tech applications.
Wait, really? Like what kind of applications?
Think MRI machines, aerospace, even welding. It's a truly unique element with some pretty vital uses.
Wow, I had no idea. So I'm guessing a steady supply of helium is pretty important then. But where does all this helium come from? Is China the main player here too?
Actually, no. Helium is primarily extracted as a byproduct of natural gas production. This makes its supply dependent on a whole other industry with its own set of geopolitical and logistical challenges. Remember those helium shortages a while back? Transportation disruptions were a major factor.
Oh, right. I remember those. It's amazing how something as seemingly simple as helium can be affected by all these global events.
It really shows how interconnected everything is.
So we've got China potentially calling the shots on certain minerals and helium hanging out with the natural gas crowd. Where does the U.S. fit into all this? We use a ton of these minerals, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
The U.S. is a major consumer, but we rely heavily on imports for a lot of these key minerals.
So we're kind of in a vulnerable spot ourselves. That doesn't sound great.
There's definitely a push to change that. The government's been making moves to boost domestic production. Remember the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Defense Production Act. Those allocated funding and resources to encourage mining and processing these critical minerals right here in the U.S.
Okay, so we're trying to catch up,
Mm-hmm.
but how realistic is that? Can we really break free from being so reliant on other countries for these resources?
It's a long game, that's for sure. A lot of these U.S. projects are still in the early stages. And let's be honest, competing with China's subsidized production is no walk in the park. It's going to take time and investment to see if we can level the playing field.
Right. It's not like flipping the switch. It
Hmm.
makes you wonder, though, what happens to the demand for some of these minerals as we shift away from fossil fuels?
Yeah.
We're talking about palladium and platinum being used in catalytic converters for gas-powered cars.
You're thinking ahead and you're spot on. It's ironic, but the rise of electric vehicles could actually lead to a decrease in demand for palladium and platinum. Someone to think about if you're a producer heavily invested in those metals.
It's a good point. Talk about a plot twist. What does the report say about the production capacity for palladium and platinum? Is it expected to grow or shrink?
The report suggests we'll probably see things remain relatively stable or maybe experience some moderate growth over the next few years. But here's another wrinkle. South Africa and Russia are the heavy hitters when it comes to palladium and platinum production, and they've got their own unique set of challenges.
Challenges. Like what?
Well, for starters, South Africa has struggled with power supply issues, which can throw a wrench into mining operations.
So the future of those metals is a bit up in the air. It all seems so unpredictable. Speaking of unpredictable, what's the outlook for titanium? Where does that fit in?
Titanium is a real powerhouse. Literally. It's incredibly strong, but also lightweight, making it essential for aerospace and other high-performance applications. Think airplane parts, things that need to be durable but not weigh a ton.
So I'm guessing as technology keeps advancing, we're going to need a lot of titanium. But here's my million-dollar question. Is China the dominant force in titanium production too?
You're on a roll. You guessed it. China dominates the production of titanium sponge metal, which is the starting point for making all sorts of titanium products. And as we've been discussing, that raises those same flags about potential supply disruptions and price manipulation.
It's amazing how all of these seemingly different minerals are tied together by these larger global forces. This report really highlights that. But we focused a lot on production capacity and geopolitics. What about the environmental impact of all of this? Mining can't be great for the planet, right?
You bring up a crucial point. The demand for these minerals is only increasing, and finding ways to extract and process them in a more sustainable way is becoming more urgent than ever.
Right. We can't just keep digging up the earth without considering the consequences. It's a delicate balance.
Exactly. And this is where the concept of a circular economy comes in.
A circular economy. What's that all about?
It's a shift in thinking. Instead of a linear take, make, dispose model, a circular economy aims to keep materials in use for as long as possible through things like reuse and recycling. It's about reducing waste and minimizing the need for new extraction.
So, instead of throwing out our old electronics, we'd find ways to recycle the valuable minerals inside them.
That's the idea, and it applies to so many things, not just electronics. Recycling can play a major role in creating a more sustainable future for these minerals.
Okay, that makes sense. But are we any good at recycling these critical minerals?
We're making progress, but there's still a lot of room for improvement. Recycling rates for some of these minerals, like lithium from those batteries we were talking about, are still shockingly low.
Really? Why is that?
Part of it is technology. Recycling some of these complex minerals can be expensive, and the technology is still evolving. There's also the issue of infrastructure. We need systems in place to collect and process these materials efficiently.
So it's not as simple as tossing your old phone in the recycling bin.
Unfortunately, no. But the good news is that awareness is growing, and with more investment in technology and infrastructure, we can significantly boost these recycling rates.
It seems like we need a multifaceted approach here, right? We need to think about responsible sourcing, sustainable mining practices, and of course, making recycling a priority.
You're hitting all the key points. It's about recognizing that the future of these minerals isn't just about digging them up. It's about managing them responsibly from start to finish.
It's mind-blowing to think about how much goes into simply using our phones or driving our cars. We rarely stop to think about where those materials come from and what it takes to get them into our hands.
It's like a hidden world, isn't it? And the choices we make as consumers have a ripple effect across the globe.
So what can we do? It feels a bit overwhelming. Like these global systems are so massive. How can we as individuals actually make a difference?
That's the question, isn't it? But every little bit counts. It starts with awareness. Being mindful of our consumption habits is huge. Do we really need to upgrade to the latest gadget every year, or can we make our current devices last a little longer?
Reduce, reuse, recycle. The classic mantra. but it really applies here.
Absolutely. And when we do need to buy something new, we can be more conscious consumers. Look for electronics designed for repairability. Some companies are starting to prioritize that, making it easier to fix things instead of just tossing them out.
That's great. I'll definitely be paying more attention to that. What else can we do besides changing our shopping habits?
We can flex our citizen muscles, support policies that encourage responsible sourcing and recycling of these minerals. Let your elected officials know that you care about this stuff.
Right, make our voices heard. It's easy to feel powerless in the face of these massive global issues, but we can actually advocate for change. What about supporting companies that are trying to do the right thing? Does that make a difference?
Absolutely. Vote with your wallet. Choose companies that are committed to sustainability and ethical sourcing. They exist, and your support sends a clear signal that these values matter.
This is actually making me feel a bit more hopeful. It's not just about feeling guilty for using our phones and driving our cars. We can actually make conscious choices to support a better system.
Exactly. Every little action we take can contribute to a positive shift.
This deep dive has really been an eye-opener. We started with what seemed like a simple report about mineral production, but we ended up exploring geopolitics, technology, sustainability, and even our own role as consumers.
It's all interconnected, and understanding those connections empowers us to make more informed decisions.
To everyone listening, we hope this deep dive has inspired you to learn more about the world around you and to think critically about the resources that shape our lives. We can't just take them for granted.
And remember, the future is not predetermined. We have the power to shape it with our actions and choices.
Well said. That's a great takeaway. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of minerals. Until next time, stay curious.